Hold your breath, okay? The skyship was supposed to be our fucking freedom. One more job, one more payout, one clean exit. Now it's a twisted metal coffin, half submerged and pissing fire into the ocean. And I'm treading water beside it, busted rib grinding with every breath, holding a combat knife that's got more cracks than my luck. The rest of the crew? I have no idea. Well, except for Talia. She drowned screaming. I twist in place, one arm going numb, head barely above the surface. And something's moving out there, below me. I glance down. Nothing. Just endless black, like staring into a grave that hasn't been dug yet. Then I feel it. The water thick, sluggish. My hand breaks the surface. Blood. It's everywhere. Mine, theirs, something else's. Doesn't matter. We weren't a crew anymore. Just broken pieces, orbiting an old man's gravity. Our leader, Graves, was more scar tissue than flesh. Now he has a cough that rattled like loose bolts, and one eye that seemed a little cloudy. But when he spoke, even the worst of us still listened. He had that kind of weight. He'd pulled us all from the gutter once, turned nobodies into thieves sharp enough to make corpses out of guards and fortunes out of scraps. Too bad most of us sucked at knowing what to do with money. But Graves knew his time was done. He couldn't keep us alive much longer. Not with the blood he spat when he thought nobody was looking.
One last job, big enough to set you all up, big enough to let you walk away. After this, you're free.
He rasped, leaning over the map spread on the table. We wanted to believe him. Hell, we needed to. Each of us carried our own ruin. Vargas, the hotshot pilot, once Navy Brigade for the Corp, now drunk more often than sober, but still the best hands on a yoke this side of E3. Talia, the tech rat, could strip code and weld it back together faster than anyone I'd met. Her mouth was sharper than her blades, and she owed favors to people who didn't forgive debts. Ramirez, the muscle, half man, half machine, his augments clanking every time he shifted. He laughed loud, fought harder, and was already breaking down piece by piece. Me. I was the knife in the dark. Breaker of locks, cutter of throats, but only the bad kind. The one who slipped in and out without leaving a trace. And then there was Cade. Graves' right hand and traded information. The steady one. The one who caught Vargas when he stumbled, who pulled Ramirez out of his rages, who listened when Talia snapped, who backed Graves even when the old man could barely stand. Cade was the spine we leaned on, the reason they didn't all scatter. And when he laid out the intel on the job, when he pointed to our skyship sitting in the bay and said we'd use it to carry back something so valuable the payout could buy us all new names, new faces, new lives, we listened. Even when Graves warned us, it was stupidly dangerous. Even when every instinct in me screamed, I accepted the mission. Desperate people don't check the rope for frays. They just grab it and hold on, praying it'll pull them out of the pit. That's why we were going to break into a corpse skyship above the dead Earth's atmosphere. We just didn't know how much hell was going to kick our ass. Graves held the table like it was the last holy thing we had. The map was a tattoo of routes and no-go zones. He coughed twice, spit a little rust onto the tray, and said,
One clean slice. You get on, you get off. Don't change our runs. Don't improvise. We know by now when we do mistakes are made.
His voice made the room smaller. Even Vargas, leaning against the wall with the bottle like it was a second heart, straightened. Talia's jaw clacked as she chewed her lip piercing between her teeth. Ramirez lightly tapped a gloved fist against the metal. I stood there, arms crossed, trying to see where gaps were in the plan. Graves coughed again. Cade, Mr. Right Hand himself, slid into Graves' shadow as if he'd been born there. He took over and unfurled a hollow. The light washed everyone in a clinical blue.
The target is the SKYSHIP Meridian. Tech level 2-6, but the hold? Unlabeled on the cargo manifest, which is tightly guarded. But I have intel it is carrying scans of old Earth and artifacts locations. That's where the money is. My contacts who want these location scans are willing to part with a huge payday just for the schematics. That should tell you right there how valuable these artifacts are. We'll take Meridian and we'll walk off with item Alpha. I did firm up that it has low patrol, but don't let any of this fool you. It has low patrol because of its location. Meridian hovers within old Earth's atmosphere. It's a small miracle it hasn't been shot down. My guess? It might be too high for the scavengers to reach. And that's just a guess. The entire place, oceans, land, and sky, are volatile.
He tapped a series of last known Meridian hover locations. He pointed to timing windows, thermal sweeps, the patterns of automated crew shifts.
We'll ride in one ship. We don't want separate crews. We'll end up focusing too much on sinking and not enough on the job. We come in clean, tight, and together. But we will take 2 SKYSHIPs with us. Ours and a shadow unit on delayed autopilot. I'll have the secondary on a ghost hold, staggered window. If things go tits up, the secondary drops on a pre-programmed glide and hides in the drift. We get in and get out. Secondary only holds the exit. Nobody improvises.
Everyone glanced at each other. The logic was simple and delicious. 1 ship for the entry, 1 ship as the contingency. It sounded safe. It sounded smarter than broke people were supposed to sound. It sounded like Cade's hands had already shaken the future and folded it over neat. He broke us down fast and clean.
Vargas pilot, you shepherd us in and peel us out. Don't get sentimental. Talia, you ghost the manifest and melt any automated seals. Just keep that code flowing. Ramirez, force us in and cover. Lex, you slip the locks and cut the lights then. You and I cut throats if need be. Graves will back us.
He said each name like an oath. He wasn't flattering us. He was assigning roles in a way that made you want to be good at the thing you were.
If Meridian flags a biological read, we'll be ready. If Meridian's crew goes weapons hot, we fall back to secondary on pattern. If comms glitch, we run silence protocol.
He was drilling everything home. He wrote codes and hand signals into the air, and we learned them quick, because if there's one thing desperation teaches you, it's to obey those who make maps of your survival. He spoke of risks like a man naming storms. He warned of hull seals collapsing, of cargo bays that could lock and suffocate, of contraband sensors that will cook you alive if you get sloppy. He mapped failure modes with the calm cruelty of a surgeon, explaining what happens if you don't follow the incision line. And then he closed the plan with the thing that made us all lean in. The one line that pushed us from cautious to greedy.
This pays enough to buy not only new lives for each of us. Shit, our kids' won't ever have to scrape for oxygen or food. We go in and walk away untouchable. No more debts. No more running after small paydays.
Vargas lifted a brow, tipping his bottle like it was a microphone.
Why above old Earth? The sector's crawling with local hostiles, radiation drifts, biomass zones. You trying to get us killed before we even touch the cargo?
The room tensed. Graves looked ready to cough up on the map. Cade didn't flinch. As always, he was calm and measured, like he'd already anticipated every worry.
Old Earth is a hazard, but the intel checks out. Biosignatures have been mapped, patrols logged, drift corridors safe. If you follow this plan, every risk has a counter. Every unknown has a procedure. That's why we stick together. Every single one of us covers the next. Vargas keeps us flying clean, Talia ghosting sensors, Ramirez for firepower, Lex for silent entry. If anyone tries to improvise, we all die. If anyone goes off script, we die. But if we move as one, tight, precise, synchronized, we walk out. Everyone. All of us.
The tension eased slightly, like steam off a pressure valve. Cade's confidence was contagious. The threat felt real, but the plan felt doable. Graves looked at me then. I nodded slightly. I couldn't spot any holes. And with a rare flash of a grin, Cade said,
"And trust me, this is nothing we can't handle. Nothing we can't survive. But we do it together, or we don't do it at all."
And in that moment, we all believed him. Every damn one of us. The boarding ramp hissed shut behind us. Metal groaned. My boots echoed against the floors. We each melted into our zones, all of us strapping in except for Graves, Cade, and Ramirez, who huddled in the middle, looking at the schematics for the internal structure of the Meridian skyship. Vargas gripped the controls, palms white, eyes scanning readouts, muttering under his breath. Ramirez walked over to Talia, flexed his augments, limbs tight like coiled springs ready to strike. She just rolled her eyes. Poor guy. He hasn't figured out he doesn't have a chance. I watched Cade as he walked to the front of the ship, looking out across the view as Vargas took us higher into the sky. Then there was Graves, stubbornly leaning on his rail instead of sitting down. Like a ghost of the man he once was, ran eyes over the crew and the ship simultaneously. I looked out the port window. Dark clouds flickered by as the starship lifted into the air and grew in speed. Soon, we'll be leaving Earth 3.
I looked at the faces of my crew. Each one I helped shape, and who helped shape me. We weren't saints, and yet we weren't degenerates either. Not completely. We were survivors. Each one of us coming from a shitty place, coming together to make it possible to live. They don't know I only have another few months to live. The pain is constant now, but I'd be damned if I missed this. One last score. One last job before my miserable old ass can't even walk. At least I know with this type of money, they'll all be safe.
Outside, clouds ripped past us in smeared ribbons as Vargas took us vertical. The ship shuddered like a live thing shaking off chains, then purred, settling into its kill-quiet rhythm. We weren't just leaving Earth 3. We were slicing into the black. The sky bent in on itself, like reality was trying to fold shut around us. Light stretched thin, then snapped. My stomach lurched as gravity stuttered out, like it forgot how to exist. Vargas muttered a prayer under his breath. Cade just grinned. Graves gripped the rail like it might keep him tethered to something real. Then came the jump. Stars bled into razors of light, white gold blades streaking past us. The hull screamed with the speed, but no sound reached us. Just that low, bone-deep vibration, like a warning buried inside the metal. Space isn't quiet. It just hums in a pitch designed to crawl under your skin. Old Earth blinked onto the radar like a dying heartbeat. Faint, sick, still pulsing. It grew in the viewport with every passing second. No blues, no greens, no clouds that weren't choked brown. From up here, it looked like a rot that never healed. Its atmosphere a bruise smeared in red and bile yellow, streaked with the scars of long dead wars. The oceans were dark, almost black, not the kind that invites wonder. the kind that swallows ships and never gives them back. Thick, oily, reflecting nothing. The chemical weapons of 100 older-than-dirt nations had sunk deep, feeding the things that learned how to survive down there. Even through the reinforced glass, I swear I could feel the planet looking back. Dead, but not empty. Talia was already hunched over her laptop, fingers flying over holographic keys, tracing codes, rewriting paths through the ship's automated systems. She was untouchable in this space, ghosting through digital walls like she was part of them. But then she froze, one finger hovering, her brows knitted, lips parting like she was trying to catch a word that didn't exist.
Wait, that can't be.
Can't be what? I asked, sidling closer. Even Vargas craned an ear.
I'm being tracked. Something picked up on me. That's never happened before. Not once. Ever. I love a good challenge. Ha, come on, motherfucker.
A smile slightly tugging the corner of her mouth. Her fingers were flying again. Graves' eyes narrowed, lips tight. Cade leaned in beside her, eyes scanning the console, expression unshakable.
Impossible,
he said. And yet, he paused, eyes looking over the interface.
Not impossible, just unexpected. Stay calm. Don't touch anything out of sequence. You can do this.
Calm. The word was poison in the air. We all felt it, and a cold pulse skittered down my spine. After a heartbeat, Talia said,
Done.
She looked up at us and smiled.
See, I knew I could...
Then the alarms hit. Not the usual console hum, not the soft blip that said someone was watching. This was a low, vibrating thrum in the hull, like the ship itself was groaning. Talia's screen flickered, lines of code twisting into shapes that I couldn't decipher, patterns crawling across the interface as if alive. Vargas yanked the ship forward.
What the hell?
Shut it down. Do exactly what we drilled. Do not improvise.
Cade barked, but the drill was useless now. Ramirez's augments sparked, static shooting across his arms.
What the fuck?
Lights flickered. The ship stuttered. Not like turbulence, not like Vargas fighting crosswinds. Something was wrong with the ship. Systems groaning like bones under too much weight. Then everything just died. Lights out. Gravity compensators gone. And then gravity had us by the throat. We weren't flying anymore. We were falling. Talia's screen screamed static and dead code, her own ghost work shredded, hijacked. Someone, or something, had found her in the lattice and twisted the ship's guts against us. Vargas cursed from the helm.
Not the ocean. We'll never crawl back out of that.
We touched dirt. We're corpses. I barked out. I felt the decision before Vargas said it. His jaw set, eyes hard.
Ocean. Shallow as I can find it.
The ship screamed as atmosphere tore at the hull. Then the hatch. Goddamn thing blew wide. Air ripped us raw. Graves was closest, shouting something no one heard before he was gone. As if an invisible hand yanked him out. Ramirez clawed for purchase. Fingers bloodied on the frame, then gone too. Flung out into endless sky. My stomach flipped with the ship's roll, lungs fire from the vacuum tug. Talia latched onto me, and I latched onto Cade. Cade's teeth bared in a snarl as he tried to anchor us in the dying bird. Through the chaos, I could hear the crashing bangs from the outside, a loud tumbling sound. It was a body. It had to be, smashing against the skin of the ship. Either Graves or Ramirez. Already gone. My mind flashing back to the intel I pored over. Pixelated satellite ghosts of old Earth. The oceans crawling with things that should have died hundreds of years ago, but didn't. Things fattened on radiation and rot. The land, worse, packs of bone-thin savages hunting anything that moved. No safe ground. No way out. Panic and fury braided in my veins. How the fuck do I live through this? The cockpit roared with voices. Vargas bellowing. Talia screaming back, their fight not with each other, but with inevitability itself. Vargas trying to find a sliver's chance of survival, and Talia trying to wake up the ship's command. Somewhere in the ship, the emergency siren rose, shrill and fast, the sound of a countdown they couldn't stop. I wrapped my fingers around the steel bars nearest me, white-knuckled, bracing, then impact. The ocean hit like a god's fist. My ribs snapped like twigs, Cade's shoulder driving into my chest as we were thrown. Metal shrieked. The ship screamed apart all around us, hull shuddering like it wanted to split. With a wet slam, water came at us like a fist. The whole world went white with violence. I watched Talia get thrown, her own body spinning under the water, right through the hatch, yawning wide open with black water rushing in. The cold water punched at me, and salt filled my throat. In the swirl and pulling water, I caught one last clear image. Cade shoving off the wreck, body cutting into the flood coming in and swimming out into a nightmare. Then I was tumbling after, swallowed into the darkness.
People like to believe loyalty is a thing you earn. It isn't. It's a habit. A useful lie you tell yourself while you divide up the spoils. I learned to stop believing in it the hard way. Years of splitting scraps with men and women who'd sooner slit your throat than share a cigarette. I got tired. Tired of good hands getting half their worth while the old man kept the coins tucked under his pillow like some saint. Graves had been useful, had been a legend. But legend eats you alive if you don't feed it. He was burning slow. Cough in the night, hands that missed the simplest knot. I could have pushed him out publicly, tried to take the throne like some idiot. But you don't overthrow a god in the open when you don't have the army. You wait. You make the moment inevitable. So I made it inevitable. Small things. Pill mixes swapped in his morning tea. A vitamin he took because the doctor told him to. I learned the rhythm of his meds, the names nobody else wanted to remember. I tampered with the doses the way a clockmaker reshapes gears. Nothing dramatic, no sudden murder. That would have raised questions. No, I preferred slow corrosion. A cough that sounded like time passing, a hand that trembled at the wrong moment. People lose faith in a man who can't stand at the front. And while people watched Graves fade, I stitched the net. The corp came with a number and a problem. Of course they did. It wasn't enough they pulled the population out of a dying Earth 2 and into a new era of Earth 3. You'd think after 3 planets they'd come up with a better name. But it didn't matter. They got too much bad publicity around their savior complex this time around. If you believe the leaked information, there were hints that maybe, just maybe, the Corp were the very entity that caused E2's downfall. After all, they pretty much ran all of E3. Well, most major sectors, and yet, they still wanted more. More blind loyalty, more money, more. The number one thing they really wanted was the old world biological vectors, cataloged as outlawed, burned, and buried. Pulled from the graves of a shit-stained Earth, or old Earth, as they like to say. The new tech could smell modern hybrid compounds and weaponry a mile off. They couldn't, however, reliably flag the old stuff. Old pathogens, ancient weaponized strains, the kind of things that made the planet sick enough to vomit up desert hellscapes and monsters. Nicely illegal, nicely impossible, nicely valuable. I didn't care what they wanted to do with it. Power, war, insurance against rivals, whatever. Hell, they might already have their sights on an Earth 4 for all I knew. Doesn't matter. Money is a clean thing. It changes your priorities quicker than sentiment ever could. They paid me in advance. More money than I'd ever seen. A neat, godly fraction. enough to prime a plan, to grease hands, to make a man feel larger than he was. The rest was held in escrow, delivery, verification, clearance. I would be standing on the precipice of actually being among the wealthiest in all the sectors. Problem: I couldn't pull it solo. Not yet. Not without a crew that could get in, quiet, and do the work. So I sold the idea as salvation. One last job, a big score, a chance to walk off the rock with names that don't get called by collectors. The truth? I needed their skills as much as they needed the escape. Me, Cade, the backbone. Funny how they all thought I kept them together out of some charitable vein. Truth is, I'd been building my exit route for the last couple years. Leverage, favors, a list of debts paid in whispers. I arranged the contact and coordination. General Cove, deep in Old Earth's ruins. Corp Tech set up the pickup window. Cove wanted a working skyship. He was king of a patch of ash and bone, a lord of scavenged guns and savages. He wanted out. Or more likely, he wanted to turn outward and conquer. Either way, he had the payday I needed on Old Earth. The kind that doesn't care about treaties, just about taking. The secondary skyship, the backup, wasn't insurance for the crew. It was currency. Sold to Cove as a trade. You get us the old stock, you get the ship that'll get you off a dirt rock and into trade lanes. Nice and clean. To seal the deal, I confirmed, once we were back on E3, he'd have 2 more ships. Once the deals were struck, I put the ghost in the code. Talia's console was her cathedral. I fed her praise, the kind that made her fingers faster and her heart softer. And when she wasn't looking, I seeded one of her routines with something she'd never notice. Tiny, elegant, a whisper that waited for proximity to Cove's compound. When the ship neared, the whisper became a hand. Doors, consoles, the hull itself could be coaxed open, handed over like a gift. So then, I watched them line up for the slaughter. Vargas' eyes in the sky like a good soldier, Ramirez flexing chrome and anger, Graves holding his map like it was his last hope, Talia muttering to the machine in her hands, fingers dancing like she could bend reality with enough keystrokes. And Lex, sweet Lex, eyes sharp, always scanning the horizon like she could outstare danger before it happened. The loyal gun and blade, Graves' shadow, quick to fight for him, even when he was too weak to fight for himself. And me? I played the patient one, the steady hand, the man who stitched the rope and held it for others to climb. It made them trust me. It kept them from looking where they should have. I told them the risks because smart men tell the truth when lying. I warned them about Old Earth hostiles. I leaned into every fear they had and then handed them a plan to vanquish it. That made the obedience feel earned, not coerced. It made their devotion a contract signed by confidence. They didn't lift an eyebrow when I proposed the secondary ship. In case things go sideways, I said. They saw a safety net. They didn't see a bargaining chip I'd already cashed in. People imagine betrayals as fireworks, dramatic, loud, obvious. But the good ones are quieter. They creep up like rot. You make yourself indispensable. Then you make yourself necessary. Then you make yourself the only one who knows how to get out. So when the day came, I felt a kind of calm. Everything moved like an orchestra I'd conducted in silence. My plan was arithmetic. Let the crew do the hands-on work. Let the old planet do what it does to scavengers and thieves. Let the Corp verify procurement, and then I'd step in for the payoff. I'd take Graves' place in the ledger and walk off the stage with the rest of them counted as casualties of an elegant operation. I stood at the hatch, watching them load, and thought about the ship I'd sold to Cove. Thought about how much cargo I could carry back if this ship didn't get banged up too badly. Thought about the escrow and the route my life would take when the last piece of paper turned my name into a brand. I was already tasting the first silver coin when the hull shuddered like a thing that might wake. For once, I was the man everyone needed. And that is where I belong.
My side feels like fire. I hear it then. Click, click, click. A low vibration. I spin. Nothing. Then I look towards the ship. Under the flames, I see a shadow. Long, unfolding. Whatever it is, I know it's not alone. And I don't want to stick around for whatever fucked up thing this planet's radiation shit out. I suck in a lungful of smoke-laced air and dive. Because floating means waiting to die. Beneath the surface, the ship's belly glows orange from the fire, shimmering against the black. I kick toward him with everything I had, toward the window so I could climb up. I'd get him out, my ribs grinding like broken glass. My eyes never left his, trying to tell him to hang on, willing him just a little longer. I was almost there, hopeful, desperate, until the ocean itself turned against him. A dark mass shot out, not one, but many writhing together, peeling out of the dark. One massive coil slammed into him, wrapping him like rope, squeezing until his chest collapsed. The last thing I saw was the blood jetting from his mouth in a red halo, his hand falling limp as the bubbles died. I bit down a scream I couldn't afford, cinched my tactical vest tighter around my ribs like a shitty makeshift cast, and forced myself to kick for shore. Every stroke was fire in my chest, but I didn't care. I had to move. I had to live. Breaking the surface, coughing smoke and salt, I saw him. Cade. Up on the rocks, hacking furiously at a slick black tentacle coiled around his leg. He tore himself free, panting, eyes wild when he spotted me dragging myself onto the shore. Relief flooded me, stupid and warm. I saw no sign of Graves or Ramirez, I rasped, making my way to him. But one of them didn't make it. I heard a body slam against the ship on the way down. Vargas and Talia are... I shook my head before I finished. His face didn't change. Then it hit me. The backup. The second ship, I gasped, pulling at his arm. Call it in. We can circle where we dropped. If Graves and Ramirez are gone, we can't stay here. We need out now. For a heartbeat, he nodded. Calm. Agreeable. He reached across his chest, fingers brushing the beacon strapped under his vest. My pulse steadied. Relief, again. Maybe there was a chance Graves was still out there. Then, movement. Fast as a viper. He yanked back, spun, and his elbow smashed into my face. The crunch was white-hot lightning, bone splintering, blood flooding my throat. Training kicked in before thought could. I rolled hard, instinct screaming, and his blade hissed through the air where my throat had been. Seems like the monsters weren't the only predators out here. I let out a shocked laugh. Cade? My voice was shredded, wet with blood, but he didn't flinch. No hesitation, no remorse. Just him, just Cade. His eyes were cold. He meant this. He lunged again, blade flashing. I caught his wrist, bone screaming under the force, and twisted. The knife carved a line across my forearm instead of my neck. Hot blood spilled down my fingers, but I didn't let go. I drove my knee up into his gut. He grunted, staggered back a step, but was up again. Seems like he came out of the wreck just fine. Figures. My ribs screamed every time I moved, but sweet adrenaline was starting to drown the pain. He came again, low this time. I pivoted, gave him a kidney punch the same time he clipped my shoulder. Steel skimming bone, a burning slice that nearly sent me under. Motherfucker, I spat, blood bubbling from my broken nose. Why? His smirk was jagged, cruel.
Because I was done sharing.
That was all. No speech, no excuses. Rage boiled hot enough to choke me. I reached for my knife. It was gone. I must have dropped it when I was scrambling out of the water. I spotted a twisted piece of wreckage washed up with us. I scrambled to it as he came at me again with the knife. I grabbed the metal panel and swung. It cracked across his jaw with a sickening snap. His knife tumbled into the surf. For a second, just a second, he went down. I staggered, coughing blood, clutching the twisted wreckage like it was the only friend I had left. Cade rolled, spit teeth into the sand, and came up swinging with his fists. The shore turned into hell. Salt, blood, metal and fists colliding. He hammered into my ribs, and only my will to hurt him kept me from blacking out. I grabbed at his face, nails gouging skin, until I found purchase and headbutt the fuck out of him. He was dazed, but was able to grab my vest and slammed me down into the sand, hands closing on my throat. My vision blackened. I swung the twisted metal shard I still had in my hand, blind, desperate. Metal split his brow wide open, blood pouring into his eye. We were both animals now. Both too stubborn to die.
I never thought for a second I wouldn't make it to shore. The monsters in the water? All teeth and no brains, so when I crawled up the rocks, hacked the last black coil from my leg, and looked back to see her, Lex, dragging herself out of the surf, I wasn't even a little surprised. Of course, she would be the one to make it out. At first, I was disappointed. But then, an opportunity. One last use before she was scrapped. I wanted to know who else was alive. Confirm the deaths. Tie off the loose ends. And when she told me, that would be her death sentence. Lex was no rookie. I knew that. Trained, sharp, panic-proof. We'd sparred together a handful of times. She was quick, clever, slippery in ways the others weren't. Made me almost like her, in the way you almost respect a blade. You know you'll eventually turn on someone else. Hell, I'd even tried to bring her to my side, twice. She'd have made a solid partner. But no, too loyal to Graves. Always Graves. She'd been plucked out of an assassin squad when she was 12, saved from being ground into a weapon by the Corp. Graves had given her a second life, a family. She owed him everything, and loyalty like that, it blinds you, it chains you. So when she staggered closer, relief on her face, I let her. I let her believe. I let her talk about the other. Let her cling to the thought of a backup plan. And the second she was close enough, I struck. Had to, she'd see anything else coming. Elbow first, crunching her nose to pulp. Her blood sprayed hot across my cheek. Then the knife, my real hand, my real intent, slashing for her throat. But she rolled, fast as memory, and there was no going back.
Cade was bleeding, down on one knee, gasping like a dog that had run too far on broken legs. His eyes were wide, panicked. He finally realized he wasn't the predator anymore. I loved the sight of him like that, so much I forgot all about my ribs. Only one thing would make this better. I drove forward, every muscle and tendon lit with fury. Die, you bastard, I hissed, raising the twisted metal high to drive into his skull. Then thwack! A sickening, alien pressure tore through me. My vision jolted white. My ears rang. For a split second, I thought the metal shard had slipped, that my own rage had turned on me. Then I saw it. My arm, my goddamn arm, spinning through the air like discarded meat, still gripping my weapon. It hit the sand with a dull thunk, fingers still curled around the metal in death grip. The shock froze me solid. That's when the pain caught up, white hot, burning. But I was confused. It wasn't my arm. It was from the back of my neck down my spine, like someone was branding me from the inside. Pain seared through me. My breath vanished. And in the flicker before darkness took me, I turned my head just enough to see.
I couldn't believe it. The bitch had me. She fucking had me. When her boot cracked into my chest and my head slammed into the ground, I felt the world stutter, and I knew. This was it. Cade, the unkillable, about to be carved up like a pig. And then, her arm just flew. I blinked hard. Thought maybe she'd wrung my skull so bad I was seeing ghosts. But no. There it was, twitching in the sand. Her makeshift blade still locked tight in her severed hand. If it wasn't so surreal, I would have laughed. That's when I saw the steel. A blade longer than any I'd ever seen. Punch clean through the back of her neck, just enough to kiss daylight out the front. She didn't even try to scream, just stood there, swaying, hate boiling in her eyes. If looks could kill, I'd have been nothing but ash. Then the blade slid back out, silent as a sigh. She staggered like a drunk for one breathless second. Then she raised her other hand and flipped me off before dropping, gone from sight. And this time I did laugh from the sheer weirdness of that scene, but behind her, stepping forward through the haze of sand and blood, Cove, the self-proclaimed general of this dead planet.
The girl dropped at my feet, twitching once before the light left her eyes, her severed arm still clutching something in the sand. Cade was wheezing, blood dripping down his chin, but still alive. Good. I needed him breathing. For now. He couldn't even last half a day on this planet. Try lasting a lifetime. I knew he was pathetic the moment we ended our first transmission. Someone like him would never understand. My first kill wasn't for glory. It was for food. The second, for water. In no time, I'd carved my way high enough that no one dared take food from my plate again. That's all survival ever is. Taking what you need before someone else does. I looked at Cade, barely holding himself together, and smiled thinly. On your feet, I told him. You've got something I want. His eyes lit, a flicker of something I couldn't quite place. Did he think he was better than me? That was fine. Let him think it. Your ship, I said, steady and calm, like I was talking about the weather. You show me where it sleeps. You give me passage off this graveyard. In return, you can drag every bomb, chemical, and rifle from the vaults of the old world you can carry. Hell, take it all for all I care. He didn't notice the way my hand flexed against the hilt of my blade. The amount of control I was exerting to be patient. I didn't care about this dying rock or the husks that crawled across it. I cared about getting off. Everything else was fuel for that fire.
I stood up, ignoring the pain. All that's left, I said, touching the beacon strapped to my harness, is packing the ship. My thumb brushed the pad. As soon as I heard the beep, the second SKYSHIP's shadow stretched across the surf as it backed closer to shore. Thrusters whining, hovering like a predator waiting to feed. I limped up the ramp like a king returning to his throne, blood on my boots, salt in my lungs, but still alive. Always alive. That was the difference between me and them. I survived. The general stood there, silent as stone, his eyes out towards the shore, watching his scavengers load up the cargo bay. I grinned wide. He thought he was about to share the spoils. He thought I was just his delivery boy. Idiot. I turned to him, still smiling. The sooner your men move, the sooner we leave this rock. I'll fly it back. I'm not stupid enough to give you instructions. You just kill me and keep going. We wouldn't want that now, would we? I added. savoring the words. His jaw ticked, just a flicker, and I knew I'd scored a hit. Good. Let him stew. Cargo clanged into the hold. Crates full of nightmares older than sin. Weapons no scanner could see. Toxins brewed in the marrow of Earth's collapse. All mine. Every last piece. I was just about to seal the hatch when the general raised a hand. His voice came low. Steady.
One last thing.
I sighed, getting up from the seat and flicking autopilot on with an impatient jab. I walked toward the back to see what else could fit. Fine, but there's not much more room. I turned, half expecting another of his scavengers lugging in junk. But there were no scavengers. No crate. Just the general, and the one man I allowed him to bring.
It's not about more cargo. It's about less.
The blade punched into my side before I even processed the words. Hot metal tearing through meat. Blood spilling. My mouth opened, but no sound came. He shoved me hard. My boots skidded on the deck before he kicked my legs from under me, then nothing. I was airborne, watching Cove, the bastard, smile down at me for half a breath as I fell through nothingness. I hit the water with a slap. Salt burned my side, black swallowing my vision. I kicked, clawed upward, eyes locked on the one thing that could get me out of here, my ship. Hovering above, engines screaming, rising higher and higher without me. I'll kill him. I'm going to get out, track him down, and kill him. That's when I felt it. Pressure around my ankle, tight as steel. A coil, then another. No. The word bubbled out of me in red froth. And above, vanishing into the sky, was my payday. The pull was savage. My body wrenched down into the dark. I thrashed, punched, stabbed, but the water came alive with them. Shadows with teeth, slick muscle and spines grinding against me. My legs snapped first. Then, the tearing started. My scream was swallowed by silence and salt water as the monsters ripped into me.
He doesn't even think twice as he hits the control to close the hatch. He walks to the flight deck like a man who's been rehearsing the motion for 13 years. The hull hums under his boots, a low, obedient purr that never once complained. He reaches the front bridge. The autopilot blinks like a red eye. He kills it with one smooth motion, moving his fingers across the console like he's never left. The engines breathe differently when they know a human will steer them. He takes a long, slow breath and lets it out like steam. Cade and the people who sent him will tell you he's some slum lord born of the planet he ruled. They'll make a myth to fit the monster. That's not his story. He is not a child of dust and decay. He is the product of a cleaner cruelty. The third iteration, in fact. He is from Earth 3. Even after old Earth choked on its own stupidity and became the living hell it is now, the corporation still couldn't get it right. The long-ago former founders of the Corp are the dicks and cunts who manufactured the weaponry and war that ate old Earth alive. In their manufactured wisdom, they scooped up survivors and shipped them to what they called Earth 2.0, where they maintained both power and destruction. They cleverly packaged it as the new uprisings, but really it was the same human species polishing the same shit stains and calling it progress. He remembers getting orders to recon old Earth. They were supposed to go in and locate the vaults. His team's orders were to scout and map old underground bunkers. They were only supposed to tag these as valuable resources. All information would then be stored inside the computers of the SKYSHIP Meridian, hovering above old Earth's atmosphere. This intel would then be analyzed for later extractions. They parachuted in and collected what the past left buried. He remembers the mission dossier, the sterile confidence of the core voices, As board members told them the landing would be quick, the pickup clean. As soon as his team was hit by the first wave of hostiles, he called for backup. He told them about the grotesque creatures and mutated humans. He was told backup was on the way. They lied. Starships took off and didn't look back. Radios quieted after the first week. The ones who survived learned fast. There are no saviors, only leverage. The general learned to turn leverage into worship. He learned the language of hunger and fear. 13 years of grit and patience and cruelty. 13 years of coaxing the dead frequencies to sprout contacts, of carving this fictional persona of General Covey, born out of violence. He was finally leaving it all behind. He lets his palm rest on the rail and pictures the faces of his old superiors. He imagines their struggle as they try to keep their expressions neutral when he faces them. He can already feel the pleasure of watching their pretense fray when he strikes them down to the very weapons they hope to own. A child of Earth 3, he knows how to carry corporate cunning and battlefield discipline in the same heartbeat. He will use both as tools now. The general smiles, and it is the smile of a man who has learned how to make a ledger balance in his favor. Years of planning honed to pinpoint perfection. He will collect their debt in blood. Who knows? Maybe Earth 4 is on the horizon. Maybe this time someone will get it right. Maybe this time that someone will be him. He flicks a switch. The ship answers. The hold doors whisper closed behind his lieutenant. The beacon that once promised salvation now blinks like a contract signed in the dark. Ahead, the ship climbs out of the ash-choked atmosphere toward trade lanes and markets where weapons buy kings. Behind him, the ocean churns dark red. He does not look back. He has loftier things to do. He leans into the controls and puts the SKYSHIP in full throttle. In the back of his mind, there is calculation and hunger, and a small, sharp joy at the thought of the faces he will obliterate. He will return with proof and power, and when that door opens for him, he will walk through it gripping a leash made of other people's fear. He watches the stars whip past him. He intends to be the man who brings a darkness they won't know how to bargain with. He lets the engines rise. And beyond the viewport, the stars are swallowed into the abyss.
And there you have it. A pick your poison cliffhanger you voted to make into a full-blown narrative. This was more of a dystopian sci-fi horror blend, but I hope you liked it nonetheless. Also, a huge thank you to everyone who participated. I really appreciate it and hope you all have an amazing rest of the week. Well, until next time.